So welcome to Future Cities Africa. Today I talk with Aamena Desai. She's a senior urban designer in Arup Cities team in Johannesburg. She joined Arup in 2015 and worked on multidisciplinary Arup projects across Africa, centered on improving urban quality of life in developing world cities. Aamena, welcome. What are some of the key projects that you are currently involved in Africa?
The kind of projects that we are involved in at the moment are actually in response to helping cities to improve their kind of urban resilience, both in the long term in terms of the effects of climate change, but especially now in the short term with the kind of uncertain shocks and effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're kind of broadly expanding the kind of resilience work that we have done with cities to address new kind of factors, of course, which include public health and more economic resilience work.
And are there any specific countries in Africa that you can highlight some one or two projects maybe that you're involved in?
So in East Africa, we're working on proposals for a couple of new cities. And I think some of the interesting things about this is that some of these regions are really rapidly urbanizing. So it's an opportunity for us to actually grapple with what African urbanity means in this rapidly urbanizing context, and also how cities can pursue inclusive development, especially in areas where the basic services of cities don't exist. So before there are buildings and the provision of housing, how we ensure that people have these basic rights like access to water and power, for example.
In your opinion, with regards to COVID-19, do you think maybe this is the end of rapid urbanization, at least for the short term?
I think that that's just for the very short term, Daniel, because I think that the wider drivers of rapid urbanization, which is really people seeking opportunity and the difficulties in terms of like rural or peri-urban life, in terms of providing people the opportunity to lift themselves out of poverty, move into more consumption sort of patterns and enter the middle class, those things are really not going to change. So I think it might just be a really temporary drop in that.
So how has COVID-19 impacting the implementation of some of your projects? Have you felt the burden like a lot of other people that we've been speaking to? Or has this actually helped some of the conversations that you are having?
That's a mixed bag, Daniel. So there's definitely some deal of uncertainty from clients and a reluctance to kind of invest in new projects or accelerate projects that they were thinking about, especially in conventional kind of real estate sectors. But I think where we have seen really interesting conversations is clients who are more interested in urban sort of adaptation, how they can use their existing assets in different ways, how they can, so adaptive reuse, I think, is a big thing that we're seeing. And then for public clients, definitely the idea of resilience is definitely broadening, and there are a lot of interesting opportunities around that.
And I understand that you're also involved in quite a few international projects outside of Africa. Are there some lessons or experiences that African cities can learn from that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, we always incorporate this approach of contextual relevance. So when it comes to drawing out these lessons, it's always about how we adapt them to the local practice, local capacity, and those are the key issues. But I think just overall, cities across the world are responding to this time of uncertainty with a lot of creativity and innovation, and that African cities in many ways are well placed to do that because we have and we have in the past and continue to do to face many sort of events of uncertainty, whether that's from civil unrest or other issues. And we can draw on the experiences of what other cities are doing in terms of innovation, especially using sort of digital technology and data to better understand city functions and improve service delivery to people.
On that topic, what technologies do you think will be the game changers going forward?
Data collection is a really big thing in terms of um, city planning for the future, and how we create cities that are just more resilient and adaptive to kind of these shocks. So the ability to collect and ensure that this is accurate data, and then to draw out the kind of lessons that are instructive for urban planning and design. And then I think there are also opportunities for more novel technological solutions for freight transport, um, just in terms of reducing these points of kind of human contact that arise out of this crisis. And then, of course, I think just in terms of people's public health and safety, there's the opportunity to use technology to actually make that safer. So one of our offices, I think in Asia, which is already on the end of the curve of the COVID and has been recently reopening, have used an app that Arup developed that was usually used in airports to measure footfall. Um, and they've coupled that kind of app with the thermal image scanning, so that it reduces the need for a staff member to actually stand in front of someone and take their temperature. So I think there are opportunities to also use some of the technologies that we have in new ways.
What is your worst nightmare when it comes to COVID-19 for Arup and for your clients?
Sure. So I think one of the things that we have been really thinking about in this time, and the way that we've been engaging with our clients, is around this idea of how of what the point is, or what is that sustainable point to what is the point to which they can sustain themselves. And for us, that's really important. It's also been really important to engage with our clients around what their difficulties and challenges are, because as a consulting business, we're in the business of trying to actually address those problems and understand them. So I think our sustainability is very much related with to that of the people that we work with in terms of suppliers and obviously our clients.
You must have had a vision for African cities before this pandemic. Has that vision changed? What does the picture look like for you? Is it a scary picture or is it a positive picture?
Yeah, so I think there are this has been quite a big topic in since the crisis began, and there have been many people who have questioned some of these ideas that we believed in for a long time, which is the densification of cities and compactness and those kind of things. And I think that the benefits in terms of providing access and accessibility and just the efficiency with which we can provide services in more compact cities is actually an enduring thing. So what it calls for, I don't think that we're going to see the end of density or those kind of things as being a driver of sustainable urban growth. I think what we're going to have to do is find more innovative expressions of that density, you know, um, find ways and design interventions, tools, and mechanisms to to improve access to open space, to improve ventilation that can improve public health, those kind of measures, rather than a fundamental rethinking of those things that make cities, active and exciting places to live in.
If you had to pick one, what is the biggest challenge that African cities must overcome to secure a bright future for its citizens?
Wow, that's a really big question, but I think that definitely the biggest challenge is this ability to translate the large kind of cities or urban like proliferations that we're seeing all across Africa into actual cities. So for us, cities mean more than just a lot of people living in close proximity to each other. What they represent is greater access to economic upliftment, to culture, to education, to all of those things. And I think for African cities to be able to ensure that for the citizens, they need to look to more different, to more innovative ways of city making that that respond to this accelerated urbanization, which obviously has not been seen in other cities, whether that is in European or Latin American cities. So this pace of urbanization is really the biggest challenge, and I think that technology can have a big role, and the digital economy as well can have a big role in kind of pushing that kind of access and really multiplying it for people.
If you had to have some words of encouragement for stakeholders involved in future city developments, a lot of them are positive at the moment, but a lot of them are also not positive at the moment. Do you have any words of encouragement for them?
So I think that it comes back to, this is really what we call a shock, and that before we really sort of declare that cities are dead, and the types of buildings and precincts um, that we have been investing in the past are just going to become redundant. I think it's important to take a step back and to look at how we can improve sustainability over the long term, rather than making these quick decisions. And I do think there's a lot of ways that people can reduce their risk, both clients and developers, in terms of just considering phasing their projects differently, incorporating kind of adaptive design principles, no matter what stage of a project they're in, and that can really kind of secure the projects that they have been investing in thus far.